Hi folks, this is All the Fruit, and today I want to show you how to do some serious foraging for nuts in the German spring. Well, spring in Germany, especially April in Germany, it's actually quite a good time for foraging. You find a lot of nice leaves, buds, flowers and spring greens to forage. You can still find some tubers and roots and bulbs from last year. Yeah, especially after a mild winter, or alternatively after a very harsh winter, you can find a lot of fruit from last year. But basically, of course, April is not the best time for fruit foraging, and I bet very few people know that it's actually quite a decent time for nut foraging in Germany. Yeah, you can actually forage a lot of different nuts in Germany. I collected those lots of different species without a lot of effort. Well, when I say nuts, of course most of those are not nuts but seeds, but yeah, they're basically considered nuts because of their hard shell. So let's see what I found. If you want to do some nut foraging in Germany, well, in summer you usually look for hazelnuts, and in autumn you look for walnuts. Well, in spring, no, that's a bad idea. I did not crack those hazelnuts, but I bet that less than 10% will still have living embryos inside, will still have living seeds inside, living the edible part. Same with walnuts. Most of them will rot after the first rain in autumn. Actually, those look like they are drenched in rancid fat from the seed inside. Look at them, they look a little bit translucent-ish. Yeah, most of them will rot after the first decent rain. I guess it's different with wild Persian walnuts, but yeah, those here are domesticated, so they have this little kind of, yeah, it's not really a hole, but a water, as a place where water can get in through the fibrous outer rind. This is where the nutrients come in, the not the veins, but the, what do you call them in plants? Well, where all the nutrients come into the nut, but later, of course, also water comes in and it rots. It's basically when we talk about hazelnuts, all of them will be not worth foraging for in spring because they will be mostly rotten with very few exceptions. When we talk about walnuts, yeah, the Persian walnut, of course, it will be rotten, but wait till you see the other walnuts. Well, this is Corylus avellana, the normal hazelnut you can forage in late summer Europe, pretty much throughout Europe, from the south to the north. And this is Juglans regia, the Persian walnut. In America it's also called the English walnut or British walnut, but both of them, nope, forget them in April. You might get a few alive seeds, but I tried this once in the Persian walnut and it was one of the most disgusting things I ate, a germinated Persian walnut seed in spring. In the southwest of Germany, people forage for chestnuts, the European chestnut, Castanea sativa. It's actually a signature plant of Heidelberg, where I live. Basically, the initiation rites for everybody moving to Heidelberg, and Heidelberg is one of the most popular cities for foreign students and expats. The initiation rite is to get them into the forest for chestnut foraging in autumn. This is like the most popular pastime of the people of Heidelberg in autumn. Last year was not so good, and that's why most of them were really tiny. You can actually find a couple still edible walnuts, chestnuts in spring, mostly in February and March. I'm sure in April you'll also find some, although you'll have to compete with the pigs which have been eating them for the last half year. The wild boars here, they don't like other nuts a lot because they have so many chestnuts in the forest. Well, actually no, in early autumn they eat a lot of walnuts, and before that they eat hazelnuts, but throughout autumn and winter they eat the chestnuts. So yeah, in a survival situation, or if you really want to forage for chestnuts in spring, you could find a couple edible seeds, but I didn't find any. Somebody on my YouTube channel told me that they have foraged for beech nuts recently. I don't know if recently means a couple weeks ago or 2 or 3 months ago. I tried to find edible seeds, but I couldn't. Well, what you can find on around this time of year are the young beech seedlings, which are actually very tasty. This one I picked a couple days ago, so it's completely dried up. But when fresh, they are quite nice. So instead of beech nuts, in spring, eat beech seedlings. So what else can you do? Well, there are a lot of conifers. Here the Douglas fir. There is the horse chestnut, and some of them still seem to have intact seeds, but they are not edible, unfortunately. They contain too many saponins and other toxic things. You can use them for a lot of different things, even to make explosives, but no, don't eat them. Kentucky coffee. It's supposed to have several uses, including being roasted for coffee. Yeah, I guess if you were really desperate for coffee, you could find a couple pots which you could still use, but I've never used them, so I cannot tell you if it's worth foraging for this in April. Well, pines. All pines are edible. Basically stuff like the domestic pine or the Russian pine or Pinus cembra, a pine from the Alps, or the pinyon pines in the American Southwest. They are all being used for their edible seeds, but you can eat all pine seeds. They are all edible. However, the Scots pine has very small seeds. I didn't even manage to extract a single edible seed. Oh, yes, I did manage to extract a single edible seed from this one, but it's big as a pinhead. So basically, in a survival situation, or if you want to know what Scots pine seeds taste like, yeah, do it. They are basically safe to eat, but it's not the best species for seed foraging. Well, acorns were a staple in European Stone Age and into the Iron Age, but you need to do a lot of leaching out of toxins and also roasting them to remove toxins. I don't know how good they are when they are already in spring and germinated and everything. You can find still alive acorns, but most of them will be germinating now, so I don't know, I have no experience. Tell me, are they good to eat in spring? And now we come to the serious stuff, folks, because all of that, basically I told you, nope. There were a couple maybes which you could try for fun or if you were in a survival situation. But how do you find some serious stuff to forage in the German spring? Well, the funny thing is the species you can forage, or at least the genera you can forage, are actually quite familiar to everybody. I said that the Persian walnut is not good for winter or spring foraging. But the Chinese walnut is. Actually, I have picked those things last year picked them from the ground well into July, and into July they had edible fruit. In September I wanted to do a video where they had edible seeds, sorry. September I wanted to do a video where I cracked the new Chinese walnuts. No, those are Juglans Manchurian walnuts, where I cracked the new Manchurian walnuts and also the old ones, but in September the old ones were rotten after 12 months on the ground. But well into July you can eat them and they're actually quite tasty. They taste different from the Persian walnut, also like walnuts, but like different walnuts. Also what you can find, and you can find them in decent amounts under Manchurian walnuts in parks. And they're actually they're quite big. So yeah, some serious foraging. In a survival situation, finding such a tree could mean the difference between life and death. And even if you are not in a survival situation, still, they are quite tasty well into the next summer. The next surprisingly successful nut foraging was for almonds. Of course, walnuts and almonds are not nuts, but we will call them nuts because everybody calls them nuts. Those are the peach almonds. Almost nobody grows normal almonds in Germany anymore. The peach almonds are grown for ornamental purposes. They are totally edible. They just have a harder shell than normal almonds. They are totally edible and nice and tasty. I tried them a couple weeks ago and most of them were still good. From time to time you get a rotten one, but yeah, who cares when there are enough good ones? Another walnut species here, this time from North America. This is the black walnut. In this case, a tree which produces very small nuts. They can be more than twice the size, and then they are, really worth foraging for. Those here are a little bit small. I don't know if I'm in a survival situation, I would probably forage for them, but normally I would look for a black walnut with much bigger walnuts. There it can be 2, even 3 times the size of those. Quite good foraging in autumn, winter, and well into spring. Another surprisingly common, nut or seed in Germany, in German cities, is the ginkgo. Actually, I like foraging them in spring because the fruit smells and tastes so horribly of puke. I wait till the winter and the people trampling on the grass have removed every trace of fruit. And then I forage for the seed, which is actually a staple in some Asian countries. The seed tastes more or less like corn. You can also make a flour out of it, which you can use for baking or cooking and doing basically everything you do with other flours. So ginkgo, also a good nut you can forage in spring. This was, I think, is Juglans catayensis. I think this was Manchurica, and this was catayensis. By the way, quite a puny nut because the tree is not doing well. They used to be much bigger a couple years ago from the same tree. So tell me, I thought I confused the trees. I forgot if this was catayensis or Manchurica or this one. So folks, please tell me which one of those is catayensis, which one is Manchurica. 2 very closely related species. A lot of botanists see them as synonyms. They say that catayensis is the same as Manchurica, but if you think they are different, tell me which is which. And last but not least, is the silverberry. The first fruit of the new year. In very mild springs or winters, you can eat them starting in January or February. This year was not so mild. So you could eat them already in March when I arrived here. And you can still eat them, although a lot of the fruit are already shriveled up. But even if the fruit is shriveled up, you can still eat it, but then it will be like, the flesh will be tasty, sweet and sour, but less than 0.5 millimeter thick. Because most of the fruit is made up of the giant seed. And I read about this thing today, and only today I found out that this huge seed is actually edible. Well, huge for the size of the fruit. The seed has a fibrous shell, which you can chew. They say the seed tastes like peanuts. I've eaten raw peanuts once, and it's quite similar. So all those things are remnants from last year that survived on the trees or in the ground, but the silverberry, nice young fruit from this year. The fruit are really tasty, and the first fresh fruit vitamins you can get in spring. And the seed, although slightly bitter, is also not bad. I think you should better boil it or roast it. I ate it fresh. Not sure if you can eat it fresh in unlimited amounts, but it was good enough. So from now on I know when I eat the silverberries, I'll not spit out the seeds, I'll just chew them. You end up with a big fibrous mass in your mouth, but you can extract a lot of nutrients and taste from it. So folks, those were some nuts you can forage in Germany in spring. From the ones you can actually not forage, to the ones which will not give you much, to the lower row, nuts which will really give you a lot of food and nutrition. You can get kilograms of seeds out of those nuts. So folks, stay tuned for a lot more fruit and nut and flower videos from the beautiful city of Heidelberg in Germany. And don't forget to like, share, comment and subscribe.